So I'm sure plenty of you out there are playing your brand new Glaivier, or you're seeing other people playing the Glaivier and you're wondering, where's the damage? Well, there's a lot of reasons why you're probably not doing a lot of damage as the Glaivier, and I'm going to go through those reasons now, as well as some ways to maybe remedy the situation. To get this out of the way first, the Glaivier is pretty middle of the road when it comes to damage, at least in the Western version of the game right now, but that's mostly because it's being compared to classes like the Deathblade or the Berserker, both of which just got nerfed in the latest Korean balance patch. Not only did they get nerfed, the Glaivier actually got a buff, so that gap between these classes are going to close more and more as that patch comes over to the West. Another thing to keep in mind is that the martial artist classes in general have a really rough time reaching their full potential until very late into tier 3 content, which we don't have a lot of at the moment. The martial artists really rely on stats like specialization and swiftness to reach their full potential, and there just aren't enough of those stats to go around right now in the Western version of the game. We're going to need those relic tier accessories and whatnot for these classes to really reach their full potential. There's also a lot of people that aren't exactly sure how to build the class and what exactly they should be aiming for, which is really weird to me because Amazon did such an amazing job with the localization. Content is pretty slow coming, but that's because Amazon takes so much pride in their translation work, and them being perfectionists about everything really slows things down. So let's take a look at the Pinnacle class engraving to see just how much their translation work is paying off. Adds Pinnacle Flurry Focus 3 instead of the Flurry Focus Stage 3 effect added upon changing stances while the dual meter is maxed at level 3. What the f does that mean? Well, since Amazon is not interested in telling you what this does, I will explain it. A big thank you to Memorizer92 on YouTube for thoroughly explaining how this engraving works. Please go subscribe to him and give him your thanks. Essentially, Pinnacle increases the effects of the buff you get from swapping weapons. By the way, I'm only going to be talking about the Pinnacle class engraving here since I think it's definitely the better option for the West right now. Once that Korean balance patch hits the West and we get later game content, then Control should better match Pinnacle in power levels. So as you can see, changing from red to blue stance now gives 5% more damage, 10% more crit rate, and 5% more attack speed than it normally would. Swapping from blue to red now gives 10% more damage and 25% more crit damage, so doubling the values you'd get from not having this engraving on. Now, these numbers may not seem like a huge deal, especially when you're looking at the red to blue stance differences, but many people don't understand the effect that specialization has on this class. So specialization gives you more meter gained whenever you use your abilities, but it also increases the effectiveness of those buffs you get from swapping stances. What's important to know is that this amplification of these effects takes place after Pinnacle is applied, not before. So this would be a 130% amplification of that 50% extra crit damage instead of the 25% extra crit damage. It's for this reason that I think your priority should be to get that Pinnacle engraving up to level 3 as soon as possible. I would not recommend sabotaging your combat stats here to achieve this though. I'm a big proponent of focusing on your combat stats before your engravings. Having good combat stats and mediocre engravings is way better than having good engravings but mediocre combat stats. Speaking of your stats, like I said, you should focus primarily on specialization and get as much of it as you can. Your second most important stat is swiftness for more attack speed, movement speed, and cooldown reduction. Now some of you are probably wondering why you shouldn't focus on crit like most damage characters do, and that's because the Glaivier actually has a ton of crit chance built into her kit normally. For one, swapping over to blue stance gives you more crit chance, and that's especially amplified by having Pinnacle level 3 and some points in specialization. With no points in crit and a 0% crit chance all around, changing to blue stance has me critting like an absolute madman. Now when swapping to red stance, we don't actually get any more crit chance, we only get more crit damage. But luckily for us, every single red skill has crit chance tripods that we can take. Red Dragon's Horn, Dragon Scale Defense, and Starfall Pounce all have tripods you can take that give you a 100% crit chance. These other red skills have tripods that exponentially increase your crit chance as well, like Thrust of Destruction has one that gives you a 50% crit rate. Leveling up these tripods through gear can also increase this crit chance even further. One other nice bonus we get from specialization is an increase to our Awakening skill damage, so we get to have our own miniature version of a Soul Fist Spirit Bomb. Now back on over to engravings. Level 3 Pinnacle is obviously very, very important, but since we're going to be critting with basically every single attack, Keen Blunt Weapon is a fantastic engraving that I think you should focus on right afterwards. Afterwards, you should focus a little more on raw damage, since multiplying your base damage with crits doesn't matter as much if you don't have good base damage to begin with. Now, of course, Grudge and Cursed Doll level 3 are great choices for unconditional raw damage, but both of these kind of require you to be good at the game, which I know none of you are. One incredible choice for the Glaivier, I think, is Increases Mass, which gives you even more raw damage than Cursed Doll, with the only downside being lowered attack speed. This lowered attack speed doesn't really matter because you're going to be getting attack speed from your stance swap anyways. But either way, focus on some raw damage to help multiply those crits even further, and I think you should definitely focus on at least one of these 3 engravings right after you've gotten your Pinnacle and Keen Blunt Weapon to level 3. Now for the skill build, your red skills are pretty much set in stone since you don't even have enough of them to fill up a single hotbar, but when it comes to blue skills, you have a little more wiggle room. The only 4 blue skills that I think you 100% should have equipped and at level 10 is Wheel of Blades, Shackling Blue Dragon, Half Moon Slash, and Raging Dragon Slash. I also recommend throwing Vault in there since it is your counter skill, and I do like taking Flash Kick at level 4 since the extra mobility is really nice. If you've equipped all of those, then you should have 2 free slots opened up to you. And I personally like to take Soul Cutter as just a filler level 1 ability since it does pretty good damage at level 1. And Chain Slash is my ability of choice for the last level 10 ability that I have on. I personally like Chain Slash because it has a lot of damage and it also gives you some range. I've also found a lot of success with either Wind Splitter or Spear Dive at level 10 instead, so it's really up to you. If you're interested in a more detailed look at the build I like to use, then I'll have it linked down in the description so you can take a look at it there. That's pretty much all I've got for you guys today. Be sure to check out my friends over at Gamersupps and give them a big thanks for sponsoring this video. You can use my promo code LOW for 10% off your order. These guys have been an absolute pleasure to work with, and I personally use their stuff every day. It tastes great, and they've got free samples on the side if you're interested in giving them a shot. Thank you as always for sticking around to the end of the video. Join my community Discord if you want to come hang out with me. I love you guys, and as always, I'll see you in the next one.